she's not flirting with you. She's starving, and you're the only one who hasn't noticed. There is a woman in your life right now, or recently in your life, who is sending signals so consistent and so specific that they have a name in psychology. She's not playing games. She's not being mysterious. She is a full human being carrying a very particular kind of longing, the longing for connection that has been absent for long enough to become a quiet ache, and she is expressing that longing in only ways that feel safe enough to try. And you, through no fault of your own, have been reading those signals as friendliness, as personality, as just the way she is. She's not just the way she is. She's showing you something specific, something urgent, something that has a window. Let's open your eyes to what's actually happening. You've been surrounded by signals you don't have the decoder for. Here's the honest truth about where most men are right now. You're not oblivious. You're not. But emotionally unavailable. You're actually quite perceptive in most areas of your life. But somewhere along the way, the specific language that a woman uses when she's been starved of genuine intimacy, the particular behavioral shifts, the specific ways she reaches without reaching became a language nobody ever taught you to read. So you miss it. Not all of it, maybe. You notice something. You notice that the interaction felt charged, that something was different about the way she looked at you. Or positioned herself near you or lingered in the conversation past every natural ending point. You notice, but you don't trust what you're noticing because you've been wrong before, or you've been told you were wrong, and the cost of misreading something is high enough that you've learned to err on the side of not seeing it. The problem with that caution is that it has a cost too. A woman who reaches and finds no one reaching back eventually stops reaching. Not immediately, not dramatically, but quietly the way a light dims when the power slowly cuts out, she recalibrates. She decides you're not available. She redirects her energy somewhere that responds to it. And you lose something you never quite had in your hands but could have if you'd known what you were holding. Today, you learn what you were holding. Understand the psychology of prolonged intimacy absence before we get into the specific behaviors. You need to understand what prolonged intimacy absence actually does, too. But a person, because this context is everything, but the full experience of being wanted, seen, chosen, and close is not a luxury for human beings. Seen, chosen, and close is not a luxury for human beings. It is a fundamental need. The nervous system is designed for it. When it's present, it regulates everything. When it's absent for extended periods, something begins to shift. A woman who hasn't experienced genuine intimacy in a long time doesn't become indifferent to it. She becomes more sensitized. But to it, her awareness of connection and its absence sharpens. She becomes more attuned to moments of potential closeness, more alert to them, more responsive to them, more affected by them than someone whose intimacy needs are being regularly met. This heightened sensitivity is what produces the specific behaviors we're going to discuss. It's not manipulation. It's the nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, reaching toward what it needs, in whatever ways feel safe enough to try. When you understand this, everything she does stops looking like random behavior and starts looking like a coherent, deeply human communication. She creates unnecessary proximity and always has a reason the first behavior is physical, and it is one of the most consistent. She finds reasons to be near you that don't quite hold up to scrutiny, but are just plausible enough that she can maintain deniability if the closeness doesn't land the way she hoped. She asks for help with something she could have handled independently. She positions herself next to you in group situations when the spatial logic of the room didn't require it. She passes something to you directly when she could have left it on the counter. She leans in to look at something on your phone when she could have waited for you to show her. Each instance seems innocent. Each instance has a reason. But the pattern, the consistent, repeated creation of physical proximity across multiple interactions and contexts is not innocent. It is her body voting for closeness in the only way that feels safe. A woman who is fully satisfied in her intimacy needs doesn't engineer proximity this way. She doesn't need to. But a woman who is longing for connection will find herself gravitating toward the person who represents potential closeness, often without being fully conscious of how deliberate the gravitating actually is. Count the instances. 1 is coincidence. A pattern is communication. Her touch becomes more. Frequent and more lingering physical touch is one of the most direct expressions of intimacy need and one of the easiest to rationalize as something else. She touches your arm when she laughs. She straightens something on your clothing that didn't need straightening. She brushes past you in a way that was slightly more contact than the available space required. She finds her hand on your shoulder during a moment of conversation and leaves it there a beat longer than social convention demands. Each of these touches carries information. Not just that she's comfortable with you, that's a lower level signal, but that her body is seeking contact in a way that goes beyond comfort. That the touch is slightly more intentional, slightly more present, slightly more meaningful than it would be if it were purely casual. The specific quality to notice is the lingering. Casual, friendly touch moves through quickly. Touch from someone who is starving for connection tends to pause, to stay, to find, but reasons to maintain contact slightly past the moment that initiated it. That pause, that fraction of a second longer, is her nervous system not wanting to let go of something that feels like relief. 4, she brings the conversation into personal territory repeatedly. When a woman hasn't experienced genuine intimacy in a long time, she craves not just physical closeness, but emotional closeness. And she will consistently steer conversations in the direction of the personal, both hers and yours. But she asks questions that go beneath the surface. Not how was your week, but what's been on your mind lately? Not do you like your job, but what would you be doing if you could do anything? She opens doors into real territory and then watches to see if you'll walk through them. And she shares in return. Things she doesn't share casually, pieces of her life, her history, her interior world that she's being selective about, and she's selecting you as the recipient. This is not small talk, but happens to go deep. This is intentional navigation toward the kind of conversation that feels like intimacy, that produces the sense of being known and knowing someone that prolonged absence makes a person crave. When you notice that conversations with her consistently end up somewhere real, somewhere personal and specific and warm, she is taking you there deliberately, not as a technique, as a need expressing itself in the safest available form. She becomes hyper-aware of your attention. But to other women, this behavior is the most emotionally revealing and the one most men completely misread as jealousy or possessiveness. When a woman is intimately starved and has identified you as someone she's drawn to, your attention becomes a resource she is acutely aware of. Where it goes, how long it stays, what it responds to. So when you give genuine attention to another woman in her presence, a laugh, a compliment, an engaged conversation, something shifts in her. Not dramatically in those cases, but visibly if you're watching for it. A slight withdrawal. A subtle recalibration of her energy. Or the opposite, a sudden increase in her own bid for your attention, as if a competitive awareness has been activated. Neither reaction is about the other woman. Both reactions are about you and the specific significance you've taken on for her. When someone represents potential relief from a genuine need, their attention becomes precious in a way that other people's attention isn't. But she's not jealous of someone she barely knows. She's protective of a connection she hasn't fully secured yet, but deeply wants. Those are very different things, and the second one is actually a profound compliment if you understand it correctly. She invests in how she appears specifically when she knows you'll be present. She puts extra effort into her appearance before situations where she knows she'll see you. Not dramatically different from her normal self, just slightly more intentional. But the outfit chosen with more care. The hair done slightly differently. The energy she brings to her presentation heightened in a way that suggests she thought about this beforehand. And here's the psychologically interesting part. She probably doesn't fully acknowledge to herself that this extra effort is about you. She tells herself she just felt like looking nice today. She tells herself this is what she always does. But the pattern, the correlation between your expected presence and her. But elevated self-presentation is not random. It's the expression of someone who wants to be seen favorably by someone specific, someone whose perception matters in a way that most people's doesn't. When you become the reason someone cares about how they appear not consciously but functionally, as evidenced by the pattern, you have become significant to them in a way that goes far beyond friendly warmth. 7, she engineers situations where you could make a move, then waits. This is the most direct behavior on this list and also the most heartbreaking when it goes unrecognized. She creates moments, quiet moments, private moments, moments where the energy in the room shifts and something becomes possible between you. The lingering goodbye that extends into a long conversation at the door. The moment in a movie or show where something emotional happens and she glances at you. The late night conversation that goes somewhere personal and then arrives at a silence that hangs between you. Like an open question, these moments are not accidental. They are her creating the conditions under which you could close the distance physically, verbally, emotionally if you chose to. She's not making the move herself. Not yet. The intimacy absence has probably also brought a fear of rejection that makes direct action feel too vulnerable. So instead, she builds the stage and hopes you'll walk onto it. When you recognize these engineered moments for what they are, when you see the stage. But she's built and understand the invitation it represents. You have a choice. And the choice you make in those specific windows determines whether something real develops or whether she eventually quietly stops building stages for you. 8, the emotional core. She's not desperate. She's human. Before we close, this needs to be said with full clarity. Everything we've discussed today is not the behavior of a desperate person. It is the behavior of a complete feeling human being who has been. Without something essential for long enough that her body and her behavior are now actively reaching for it. There is no pathology here. There is no manipulation. There is only the very old, very human need for closeness, for being wanted, for being touched with care, for being known by someone who chooses to keep knowing you, expressing itself in the safest available ways. When you see these behaviors in a woman and you understand them correctly, the appropriate response is not strategy. It is genuine care. It is receiving what she's offering with the warmth and presence and honesty that real human connection requires. Because she's not trying to trap you. She's trying to find you. And whether you let yourself be found, whether you respond to her reaching with your own, is one of the most human decisions you'll make. She showed you, repeatedly, in every way available to her that felt safe enough, the proximity she engineered, the touch that lingered, the conversation she steered, but into real territory, the awareness she had of your attention, the effort she made in your presence, the moment she built and then waited inside. All of it was one thing. Her reaching toward you in the only language she could use before she was certain you were safe enough to speak to directly. Now you speak the language. Now you can see the reaching for what it is. And now with that clarity, you can choose whether to reach back. Reach back with warmth, with presence, with the honesty she's been hoping to find on the other side of all that careful, patient, quietly courageous reaching. She's been waiting long enough. If this video gave you eyes for something you've been walking past, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we decode the real language of human connection, longing, and what it actually means when people reach for each other in the ways they can't quite say out loud. You deserve to understand that language. And now, a little more of it, you do.